Welcome into the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. Evan Moesta here from Winston-Salem. We've had a crazy day full of state championships across NCHSA. We've had cross-country state championships, girls tennis state championships, and here in Winston-Salem, volleyball titles have been crowned. But it is also week 11 of the high school football season, and games are going final across North Carolina, and there are a ton of wild scores to get to. Joel Bryant's going to join us in just a second to help break down some of those top scores. But let's first take a look at the top 25 rankings on our statewide Talk It Out NC scoreboard. And it starts with number 1 ranked Grimsley, the Whirlies, 45-8, a win over Benell Smith. Providence Day, they won yesterday over Charlotte Country Day, 49-0, to complete an unbeaten regular season. Huff defeats Hopewell, 56-0. West Charlotte, a shutout against North Mech, that's 43-0. Millbrook, they hold on to pick up a low-scoring game against Corinth Holders. The Millbrook defense holds the Pirates to only 6 points, but the offense is only able to muster a few scores in that one. A thriller, Mooresville Lake Norman, a rivalry game there. Mooresville is down. They come back and win that one 23-21. Some more scores from around the state of North Carolina presented by Talk It Out NC. Here's the big one. This is what I'm going to bring Joel Bryant in to help break down in just a little bit. Clayton defeats Cleveland 20-3. That score is not correct there. It is 20-3 Clayton. They end Cleveland's streak. Finally, the Comets break through and pick up a win there. Cardinal Gibbons shutting out Cary tonight, 46-0. Myers Park shutting out South Mech, 41-0. Independence, a big win over Butler, 40-7 yesterday. Hoggard defeating Ashley to complete a unbeaten regular season, 38-8. Watauga, they defeat St. Stephen's 28-18 tonight. More top 25 scores. Mallard Creek shutting out Chambers yesterday, 31-0. Ashbrook, they remain unbeaten, 16-0 over Huss. Crest, 70-0 in a rivalry game with Kings Mountain. Jordan yesterday, 43, 3 winners over Willow Spring. Jacksonville defeating White Oak, 34-8. Right now in overtime, one of the wildest games in the state, Hickory and Bandy's. Bandy's, in the final seconds of regulation, takes a 39-36 lead over Hickory. But the Red Tornadoes come back. They kick a field goal as time expires to force overtime. And at last check, Hickory, they had a 47-39 lead in overtime. More top 25 scores from the Talk It Out NC statewide scoreboard. Tarboro, a back-and-forth game with Kinston. Not often do you see the Vikings challenged. They win tonight 42-35. Northern Nash wrapping up a big win over Rocky Mount, 31-18. Brevard in overtime defeats Pisgah 36-30. Rollsville, they've ended the season red hot, a 44-7 win over Enloe. And Richmond defeating Pinecrest 58-27. That is a big win for the Richmond Raiders, and that puts Pinecrest in a little bit of predicament in terms of where they go in playoff predictions. Again, seeds are going to be determined on Sunday. We move on here on the High School OT post-game show. We're going to bring in J. Mike Blake, who's in the press box at Trentini Stadium on the campus of Wake Forest. I'm at Wake Forest University. You're at Wake Forest High School. And you had the High School OT Game of the Week presented by Alpaca Peruvian Chicken. J. Mike, how did that one go? And the Cougars, they've gone through a lot of adversity this season, but since they've gotten their head coach, Reggie Lucas, back, they've heated up and won out in the conference.
Yeah, it's nice to go into the playoffs on a win streak, which is what Wake Forest will be doing, with winning all of their run the table in conference play with 5 straight wins, 6-4 going into the postseason. This one was never really in doubt. Heritage did have a field goal in the second quarter to make it 7-3. It's about as close as they got. They didn't make too many more trips into the red zone. Wake Forest could just kind of pressure bad throws and things like that all night long. Now, Michael Olu was important for Wake Forest in moving the chains, as he always is. He's a really good player. But he didn't get to the end zone tonight. Other guys had to make the best of those short yardage situations. Had a really, I think Wake Forest tonight was pretty strong in a kicking game as well. And again, this one, the Battle of the Forest, Halloween night, conference championship on the line. It was just smooth sailing for Wake Forest. They had no issues that I could see. And now they wait for the 7A playoffs to drop or brackets to come out, figure out where they're going in the first round. I'm pretty sure Joel Bryant would know more than me, have the stuff memorized, but I'm pretty sure they're not going to be one of the top 8 seeds, even though they are a conference champ. That's a change with this year's brackets. So first round, they'll have to figure out, maybe they're hosting, maybe on the road road. But at least they physical property wise, Wake Forest handled a lot of the opponents that Heritage kind of had some trouble with. But for long stretches of this game, it was still kind of hanging in the balance.
Yeah, J-Mac, I think one of the interesting things, and obviously what we've learned from this year with playoff projections, is that the littlest thing can change them. But going into this matchup, one of the recent projections that was coming out involved Heritage going right back to Wake Forest next week.
Yeah, if that were to happen, I'm sure this result maybe skews a few things, but if that were to happen, because we used to see that a lot in the old playoff scenarios, that you could kind of almost say, like, hey, these two teams are about to meet again, because not much would change in the final week. As Joel Bryant pointed out in the Q&A that he did this week, things are going to fluctuate a little bit more. However, if that were to happen again, I'm sure there's some things that Heritage would want back from tonight. Just a certain efficiency in the red zone to try to combat some of what Wake Forest had done, and Wake Forest just kind of bowed up when they needed to. I still don't think there's anyone on that Heritage can. It takes 4 or 5 guys to bring down Micah Olu, so they just get just enough offense to stay in front and kind of control the game by getting that first touchdown and just kind of cruising from then on out. So it would be interesting if they did meet again. There's not as many rematches because of all the split conferences and stuff. But I think for both teams are probably excited to go play somebody else in the first round. And I'm glad we don't see that as much now as we did then.
Well, that is High School OT's J. Mike Blake. He was on the call tonight for the High School OT Game of the Week presented by Alpaca Peruvian Chicken. It was the season finale, J. Mike, as Wake Forest picks up a big win over at Heritage. We're going to let you go. Thanks for joining us, J. Mike.
No problem.
Move on here on the High School OT postgame show. I'm going to bring in Joel Bryant, see if he can hear us now. Joel, can you hear us from the studio?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, there you go. There we go. Yeah.
All right, good.
Let's all talk about the elephant in the room, huh? Clayton defeating Cleveland.
Yeah, I think I said last week, I forget if it was on Postgame Show or Football Friday, that I had a feeling that, this year's game is not going to be such a close finish as like the last two were. Usually that just doesn't happen 3 straight times. You get like this crazy finish. And I said, whoever would win this game, I think would be pulling away in the fourth quarter. I think it was going to be Clayton. Not really. With the way Cleveland was playing this year, they felt kind of inevitable. And Clayton obviously proved that wrong. It's funny. I was telling Lars out here who's doing the scores for us. I had this kind of pegged in the offseason when I wrote about this conference. But then, when you start seeing Cleveland just thrash everybody and Clayton going through some struggles, your opinion kind of changes. But then kind of in the end of it, everything kind of ends up the way you originally thought it would be, in the offseason. So very interesting for Clayton, having that win to break through. It's not just a 61 game winning streak for Cleveland. It's the losing streak for Clayton to Cleveland since 2017. You never want to be in that situation if you're in one of these heated crosstown rivalries. So for Clayton, to kind of get that monkey off their back by winning tonight, that's going to help them out down the road here.
Yeah, you figure at some point, all good things, if you're Cleveland, come to an end there with that streak. At some point it was going to happen. But also, I mean, as you had mentioned, they kind of dodged a couple of bullets the last couple of years with a Hail Mary and, some crazy plays at end of games. Like, at some point, Joel, if you guys don't know, a big fan of looking into one-score games. At some point, the law of averages is going to work out. And I did feel like with all that Clayton had, this was going to be the year, given what Cleveland lost and what Clayton had. But, Joel, do you think it was a little bit easier to forecast over the last couple of weeks because Cleveland had showed a little bit of weakness going down the stretch? They were close in that Garner game, they were close in that Southeast game, and now they lose tonight?
Yeah, I guess, you're probably right that it probably should have been an indicator, right? But I didn't let it be. I still picked Cleveland this week. That Southeast Raleigh game, it's obviously watching that game, Southeast Raleigh was kind of blow for blow with them until kind of that emotional moment happened in the second half. And I think Cleveland really rebounded well from that. And I think they came out of that unfortunate situation that they had with the injury really strongly. And I think Southeast Raleigh was kind of sleepy after that, for lack of a better word. And just obviously it's a tough situation. So yeah, maybe looking back at those couple of games, maybe this was a sign that Cleveland was going to slip up here. But then again, I know this is tough for them. You don't want to have a 61 game regular season winning streak snapped, but at some point, a streak like that kind of weighs on you, right? That's a new kind of pressure on your team. For these kids that are coming in, just like the new quarterback Owen Holbert, right? They come in with this 50 some odd game regular season winning streak, and it's on you to hold that up, right? It's on him to keep that going. So I think the silver lining is that they won't have the same level of pressure perhaps going into the next regular season that they had over the last 2 regular seasons here.
It's not the only crazy result that we've had from tonight. A game that just went final. Hickory. What a day to be a Red Tornado. Hickory wins 47-45 in overtime against Bandy's. Bandy's hit the go-ahead field goal in the final seconds. Hickory comes down, answers back with a field goal to force overtime. Hickory scores first in the overtime, gets the 2-point conversion. Bandy's scores in the first overtime, but they cannot convert. 47-45. Hickory not only winning its first volleyball state championship in school history today, they escape what could have been a massive upset, Joel.
That Bandy's team, that's another one of these teams that's always in like these hectic, high scoring, almost like basketball scorer kind of games. I didn't think they would be too close with Hickory, but tonight, obviously, they had a good game plan and everything. Props to them for like really taking Hickory to the brink. That's a team kind of like Cleveland that's just been so dominant over the last few years, where it seems like they're just kind of inevitable, right? And the fact that Bandy's was beating them so late in the game, that's still a credit to them. That senior quarterback Brady Sweat has been a really good player for Bandy's, and that's a team that Evan, they're going to come into the playoffs with this 5-5 record, but that seems like the exact kind of team to me that could really just mess with some people in the playoffs, right? Because they played in this vaunted conference. They've had all these close losses, lost to Newton Conover by a point, lost to Maiden by a touchdown. That's a team that, someone might look at that record 5-5 and be like, okay, it's going to be just an easy, first round win or whatever. But Bandy's can definitely cause some problems in the playoffs.
Let's keep it on that part of the state, not too far from where Bandy's is located, just across the lake. Mooresville and Lake Norman. Lake Norman was up in that one, but Mooresville comes back and wins late. There are a couple close top 25 games. If you just want to kind of go through that, maybe Tarboro going back and forth with Kinston and being able to hold on there. Brevard gets an overtime win against Pisgah. A lot of just really interesting top 25 scores across the state tonight.
So Tarboro, and speaking of these like winning streaks, so Tarboro came in with a 76-game conference winning streak. They had not lost a conference game since 2011, and that game was to Kinston. It was an overtime. Tarboro went on to win the 2011 1AA state championship. But tonight, Kinston has them tied in the fourth quarter at 28. And I don't know the last time Tarboro has been tied in a conference game or even in a one-score conference game in the fourth quarter. That probably takes some further digging. But so they were kind of on the ropes tonight. And this is what we were talking about, right? Tarboro is now the small team in this new conference. It's only 2A team. The rest are 3A teams, and they're good programs. So we knew Tarboro was going to get different level of challenge this year, and they really got it tonight against Kinston. But of course, the Vikings, doing what they do and pulling away there at the end.
Brevard, they remain undefeated, sneaking by Pisgah tonight. Mooresville's been a team that just keeps getting better as the season goes along. Do you put any stock into either having close games tonight, or is it just the fact that it's late season rivalry games and you're almost in playoff mode right now where you're just hoping to escape with a victory?
Yeah, the Mooresville Lake Norman thing, obviously with that being a rivalry, it's hard to gauge. It's hard to get a real reaction to that.
Yeah.
Just knowing the kind of hated nature of that rivalry. I know that Lake Norman was winning in the third quarter and in the second half. I think Mooresville was up at halftime. Lake Norman had a nice second half, came back, took the lead, but Mooresville prevails there. I'm not worried about them. I think they'll be fine.
Any other scores that have stuck out to you so far tonight as you go around and kind of digest what is happening around the state?
So Crest obviously, had that tough loss.
Oh, yeah.
To Ashbrook last week. They lost to Ashbrook
poor
by
Kings Mountain.
They lost to Ashbrook by one touchdown last week, a competitive game. And Kings Mountain faced the brunt of that kind of just like angry Crest. And Crest won 70-0 over Kings Mountain. And look, I mean, Kings Mountain is a team, they've played some good teams. I think they beat Shelby earlier in the year. They beat that Bandy team we were just talking about earlier in the year. That's not a bad team. Like, that score looks bad, but that's not a bad team. So Crest definitely sending a message to the rest of the 5A classification with that win over Kings Mountain tonight, 70-0. It's just wild.
Big news though, Sunday, seeding Sunday. You're breaking it down. You're going through projections, getting all of that sorted out right now. Obviously, this is it.
I
Guys,
need people to put their scores in the max preps. Like
as I was just about to say, we need it.
Do it now.
Because
I can get these out like very fast if you do it.
The second
So,
everything's in max preps and they register in the NCHSA system, Joel goes to work. So the quicker you do that, the quicker you'll get projections. And over the next couple of days, you'll probably get a pretty good forecasted look at what these playoff brackets are going to look like. There are a couple games.
This one, Evan. The Leesville being brought in 14-7.
Whoa!
See that one coming? I thought Leesville would probably win that game by a few scores, but 14-7 over Broughton. That's interesting.
Yeah, there are a couple of uncharacteristic scores of teams scoring a little bit lower. I think Millbrook had 25 on Corinth. Obviously, Leesville in a battle there.
They held Corinth to 6 points, and we know that they were having multiple starters out in this game on defense.
They had like half their defense out, and they held them to 6.
Yes, that speaks to the depth that Millbrook has this year. I would think that those players will be coming back in their first round. Well, they're going to play in the second round. They're going to have a bye. But I expect that defense will be reloaded. I do want to talk about, so the other big upset tonight, we talked about the Cleveland-Clayton game. Pasquotank beat Northeastern 21-14. Pasquotank, for those that don't know, they are rivals. So they're both in Elizabeth City. Pasquotank's maybe 15 minutes north of Northeastern. Have not beaten them since 2007. And actually, that winning streak for Northeastern over their rival was 21 games because they used to play twice every year. So, like from 2007 through 2011, they were playing twice, once in non-conference and once in conference play. So that was actually a 21-game winning streak for Northeastern over their rival Pasquotank, and Pasquotank beating them tonight 21-14. That Northeast 3A, 4A, 5A conference ended up being quite a mess. There was so many upsets in that conference this year. The other thing that's going to benefit these teams come playoff time because they've been in so many battles, I would think.
As we're kind of wrapping up volleyball here in Winston-Salem, Leica BB sitting right next to me, you should have seen the look on his face when he heard that Pasquotank just won.
Oh, well, it sounds like Leica should be signed up for our email alerts on HighSchoolOT.com.
We're a little busy. Whoa. We're a little busy. There were a lot of games, Joel, though, that you were monitoring in terms of implications it would have on seeding, east-west lines in particular. Northwest Guilford, RJ Reynolds, one of those. You were looking at that Richmond Pinecrest score a lot as that could have some, implications.
Let's talk about that game. So
where Pinecrest lands, because that was a blowout.
Yeah, Richmond winning. I thought Richmond would win, but 58-27 over Pinecrest. And look, maybe the signs were there. Pinecrest struggled with Hope County last week. Pinecrest beat Hope County 26-23 last week. They probably should be in that team by a little bit more than that. But Richmond taking it to them this week, 58-27. So the interesting thing with that is Pinecrest coming into this week was one of the top seeds in the 8A West. But now they're going to drop because of that. And we're going to see some other 8A West teams, potentially Myers Park, potentially Ballard Creek, potentially West Forsyth, rise up in the seeds. And that's going to benefit those teams when they have home games further into the playoffs.
Yeah, and that definitely, will change things with how different seeds will work out. Do you think Jordan will head east now?
So yes, that's the thing. So the game that I pinpointed earlier this week was this Northwest Guilford RJ Reynolds game, which seems kind of like an innocuous game, on the schedule. Northwest Guilford came in 2-7, so this game is not on most people's radars. But Northwest Guilford, as an 8A team, they were the first team out of the playoffs pretty much all year. And I thought that if they could beat RJ Reynolds, there'd be a chance that they can jump up into the top 24, assuming the Corinth holders lost to Millbrook. And now that Northwest Guilford beat RJ Reynolds 13-6 in overtime, I kind of am expecting them to jump up into the top 24. And what that's going to do, because we're doing the moving east-west line this year, when Northwest Guilford gets added in, that's going to send Jordan back to the east. And that's going to change the seeding on both sides because Jordan was one of the top seeds in the 8A West coming into this week. Now they're going to be potentially the 2, potentially the 3 seed in the 8A East if Northwest Guilford does rise above Corinth holders in RPI. Again, we won't really know until tonight, but that's what I think is going to happen.
Anything in some of the lower classifications? Obviously, there's a lot of intrigue around what's going to happen with Wilson Prep. They challenged themselves in the non-conference. Any other year with the previous RPI formula, I think it would have benefited them a lot. But now that your own win percentage matters so much, they're kind of behind the ball. But you've been tracking that there are some teams that are opting out of the playoffs. It's shifting around 1A and 2A. Wilson Prep's been this team that we've kind of identified as a contender to win a 1A state championship, but they may not be your typical 1 or 2 seed like we've seen dominate so far in the fall sports state championships.
Yeah, so I think you actually hit it on the head. Wilson Prep, with the schedule they had this year, so they played Clayton, they played Northeastern, they played a bunch of teams that are higher classification than them as a 1A school. And I think last year, if they did that schedule last year under the old RPI formula, that would have helped them out a lot. But this year, since your winning percentage has just as high of a stake in it in RPI, it kind of didn't really work out for them. But it might not work out in the numbers, but I'm sure the experience of playing all those top teams is going to help them in the playoffs. I still do expect them to get to the state championship game. But as you were kind of alluding to, so the issue with Wilson Prep this year was because of that moving line. And because we could not fill a bracket in 1A, there are not enough teams in 1A to fill a bracket. That line was going to depend on which teams decide to just not play. NCHSAA teams can opt out of the playoffs if they choose to. A lot of times what happens here is teams that, started off with not great numbers to begin with. Sometimes they'll have injuries and sometimes they'll just have kids leave the team and they just don't really want to field the team in the playoffs, which is understandable. So we've been tracking that. I do believe there is at least one team in the East that will be opting out, and that will, I think, solidly put Wilson Prep back in the East, because what was happening is if everybody on that RPI table was actually playing in the playoffs, Wilson Prep would have been the middle team. And what we're doing with the middle teams this year is we're doing a coin flip with a representative from the Coaches Association. They come into the NCHSAA and they do a coin flip to decide if they go to the West or East. With Wilson Prep, which could be, in a lot of people's eyes, the favorite in 1A, like choosing which region they go into based on a coin, optics of that, not very good. So if teams do opt out of the 1A playoffs and Wilson Prep can stay to the East, I think that will kind of save some controversy for the NCHSAA.
Well, Joel, we've been talking a lot in today's show about the big Clayton win over Cleveland. Head coach Scott Chadwick is going to join us here on the High School OT post-game show. A big win. Congratulations, Coach, on the victory tonight.
Thank you, guys. Heck of a night for the Comets.
Coach, obviously, this game with, the streak lasting as long as it did, you have to wonder, if it was maybe at some point just kind of like really weighing on your kids, right? They couldn't kind of get that monkey off their back. And for them to finally kind of break through and take down Cleveland tonight, how much of a relief do you think that is for the program?
It's a big win for us. I think you just have to have tremendous respect for what those guys have accomplished in the years of, of winning and the years of that streak. And those kids have a lot of pride in what they do in that streak. And it's hard, it's hard to overcome that, but it took a night like what our kids did out there tonight. Just a game where we really put 4 quarters together, and defensively, I don't know that we could put up a much better effort than that.
Obviously, I'm sure it was a stressful week for you, just trying to come up with the perfect plan to beat this Cleveland team. I know, it's probably a busy week for you. What was the plan, and how do you think you guys executed upon that plan?
Well, offensively, we tried not to be, too complex. We're without a couple of really important cogs in the offense there, so we had to, get some new guys in there that hadn't played a lot, and they move around a lot defensively. So, we just tried to really be very, very vanilla, almost, probably more than I would ever think in a game like this.
Mm-hmm.
And defensively, we really just wanted to kind of put our best players in a position defensively to make plays and, give Keyshawn a chance and the guys in our secondary. And, can't say enough about the job Bennett Jones, our defensive coordinator. The plan that him and Eddie Price put together for our defense was was just freaking magnificent.
You mentioned Keyshawn. Kind of a side note, he did flip his commitment this week from Clemson to Miami. What was did you see that coming, and what was your reaction when he did that?
No, really didn't see it coming. And you know what? It was Tuesday or Wednesday when it happened, and I was like, okay, I'm busy. I got a game to get ready for. So,
right. Yeah.
What I tell our kids I've told every kid that's ever played for me that's gone on to some big place that I don't care where kids go. You know, they need to do what's best for them. I don't live their lives, so he can go wherever the heck he wants to go. And I would say that I'm pretty sure that he was the highest paid person probably in the building tonight, though.
Oh gosh. Okay, we're gonna steer away from that subject. I do want to know, just feeling wise. Obviously, the last two Cleveland games were these like crazy nail biters, right? They're coming down to the last second. What was it like just being in the fourth quarter when the game was really not really much in doubt? Did that feel kind of weird?
You know what? I yelled at one of my coaches because with 5 minutes to go, he was like, "Man, I can't believe we're up by." And I was like, "Be quiet! Like there's still, even with 5 minutes left, I was like,
right.
Still, we're still not out of it. They're still not out of it." And so yeah, when we got the ball back there, with I guess with 4 or 5 minutes, whatever it was, to be able to kind of put it away and not give it back. That's 2 games in a row. We did that last week at Garner too, where we ran the clock out and got first downs and felt good. This town and this school and this community has been so good to me and my family, and I'm excited that we could do this for them. This town really wanted this, and I'm really happy that we could give it to them.
Coach Scott Chadwick from Clayton High School again. So they beat their rival Cleveland tonight, ending that big winning streak for Cleveland. One last question, Coach. I know you were kind of worried, this week about maybe not getting the bye if you were to lose this game. I wasn't too worried. I was kind of messing with you throughout the week, but now you're certainly not going to be knocked off that bye line. It's pretty safe to assume you're going to be having a playoff bye. So how's this kind of week going to go for you? Not playing next Friday. How do you want to approach it this week?
I think we'll probably do the same thing we did on our last bye, and that is, probably spend some time just working on the things that we need to work on to make us a better team and getting rest. We need to get some rest. We need to heal up. We got some guys that are really banged up, so this is going to come at a good time for us, and I'm hoping that this gets us, clearly in the top 4. It means that we get 2 home, potentially 2 home games.
Awesome. Well, Coach Chad, we appreciate you coming on. Congrats on the big win tonight. Clayton defeats rival Cleveland, ending that big winning streak. We're going to take a quick break here on the Talk It Out NC postgame show. Then we're going to hear from some of our favorite guests, the Scoreboard Radio guys and Logan Carter, after this break.
Don't fall for the myths. Get the facts about underage drinking.
Myth: teens bounce back fast and teenage athletes can perform just fine after a night of drinking alcohol. The fact is, alcohol can hinder athletic performance for up to 3 days, delaying recovery and causing long-term issues with muscle loss and weakness. But don't just take it from me.
Choosing not to drink as an underage athlete has really helped me significantly. I've been able to focus, keep my priorities straight, and it's helped me separate myself from, many other people.
Get more facts at talkitoutnc.org.
Welcome back to the HighSchoolOT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. Evan Moesta here from Winston-Salem with you. We bring in our guys from Talk It Out, or our guys from Scoreboard Radio, Jeff Lincoln, David Jones. They're going to join us here as they had some games out in the Catawba Valley that we can get to. Let's bring them in now. Jeff and David, can you guys hear us?
Are we on?
Possibly. Can we hear us?
Hey, can
you
you
threw it to give us a thumbs up if you can hear us.
I can hear you.
All right, there we go.
Oh,
we can't hear
let's go.
you, so I don't know. We could hear you with the coach there on the first side of that, but I don't have you right now. So we were in Taylorsville tonight for Alexander Central and South Caldwell, in a game that we wondered how South Caldwell would respond after losing at home last week, 48-2 to St. Stephen's. We thought South Caldwell may come out a little flat tonight. They went 3 and out to open the game. Alexander Central had a big 50-yard run by their quarterback, Redmond, and thought, here we go again. But it wasn't to be. South Caldwell really fought hard in this game. Alexander Central won 42-26, but just some crazy stat line in this game tonight. Alexander Central outrushed the Spartans 345 yards to 48, so nearly plus 300 in rushing, but South Caldwell outpassed the Cougars 252 yards to 57 yards. So almost a 200-yard margin there in the passing game for South Caldwell. A couple of mistakes in this one's for the Spartans proved to be costly. South Caldwell had it third and goal from the 1 just before halftime. Had a false start, couldn't punch it in, and a little too much Alexander Central in the second half. Sawyer Chapman-Mays, the senior, 22 carries, 140 net, and 3 rushing touchdowns for the senior. So he was really fantastic tonight for the Cougars as they pick up win number 3 on the season.
Can you guys hear me now by any chance?
We not sure we can hear you.
Can you see that?
It's showing that we're unmuted.
Guys, can you hear me?
So what you usually ask us, any scores from around the area that surprised us tonight? Hickory, that game went into overtime. Hickory gets a 39-yard field goal to tie it up as time expires. They go into overtime. Joe Glass, the man I tell you what, he's got a lot of fortitude. It goes for 2 after they score the touchdown. They go up 8. Bandy scores. They have to go for 2. They don't get it. Hickory holds on to win. Big win there. Newton Conover tonight, 19-13 in double overtime over Maiden. Newton Conover, watch out for them in the playoffs in the 4A round. They're going to be tough. Kind of came out of nowhere this year. And Matt Wilson has those guys playing good. And Maiden, they fall to 6-4. Newton Conover moves to 8-2. A great game between Shelby and Burns. Shelby ends up winning by 1 point there. Lincolnton, they win 42-6 over West Lincoln tonight. They wrap up their conference championship. So be interesting to see what happens in the playoffs next week as far as the seedings and everything that comes out. The teams that we follow in our area, South Caldwell probably will still get in even as a 23 or 24 seed. Alexander Central probably going to be a 19 or 20 seed. Watauga will have a bye.
However, let me just jump in here. Watauga, I think, maybe the odds-on favorite to win the 6A West. But they have not been destroying people down the stretch like we saw through the first 7-8 weeks of the season. So are people figuring Watauga out? Are they, for the first time in the Ryan Hobbick era, taking their foot off of the gas a little bit? I'm not trying to cast aspersions toward Boone. That's a great football team. I hope they win the 6A title. But they have not closed out teams down the stretch like they have all season long. So we'll see what the Pioneers do with the week off and the bye. High Brighton winning big against West Caldwell tonight. The Panthers will get a bye. And Brevard beats Pisgah in 2 overtime. So Brevard will hold on to that 1A seed in the 4A West. And I wish we could hear you guys.
I tell you, and you always ask us, where are we going to be next week? We don't know yet. Probably will be with the Cavaliers of East Burke. They're in the playoffs for the first time in a while. More than likely traveling down to West Iredell. We may follow the Cavaliers, or we may stay close to home in Hickory and go over to St. Stephen's. St. Stephen's should have a home playoff game as well, too. So we'll either be with the St. Stephen's Indians, who we saw last week against South Caldwell, or East Burke that we saw earlier this season against High Brighton. We'll be somewhere next Friday night. Hopefully,
no weeks off for us, baby.
And hopefully, we can hear you guys next week.
Improvising on the fly. That is Jeff Link and David Jones. They can't hear me, but I can hear them here on the High School OT postgame show.
Cool.
Thanks, guys. All right, let's bring in Zach Mayo now, the head coach of Mooresville High School, picking up a big win tonight over their rivals at Lake Norman. Coach, congratulations on the win. What worked so well for you there in the second half that allowed your guys to kind of face adversity and come away still victorious?
Coach, I think you're muted. Still can't hear Coach Mayo. Mooresville defeated their rival tonight, 23-21. They beat Lake Norman. Coach, we're gonna dip Coach out here until we can hear him a little bit later. I'm guessing he's on one of those school computers that aren't so friendly to StreamYard. We're gonna bring Evan back in here.
Yep.
Evan, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Joel.
Lots of issues tonight. Lots of issues.
Yeah.
It must be Halloween, right? There's some weird stuff going on.
Something scary is going on.
All right, let's actually get Logan Carter in here. Logan was at that big Northwest Guilford RJ Reynolds game we were talking about. So Logan, are you here?
Yep, I'm here.
Awesome. So, Logan, you were at that big game that I pinpointed, the Northwest Guilford RJ Reynolds game. So, Northwest Guilford, the 8A school, wins in overtime over RJ Reynolds, the 7A school, 13-6. Tell me all about it, how the game go, and what was it like?
Yeah, so first half was ugly, a lot of penalties. I think something to do with Halloween. It was an eerie feeling in the first half. Second half, Northwest Guilford finally got it going on offense. I think in the first half, Farrell Price, he threw 2 interceptions in the red zone, so that was brutal for them. But they overcame that. Farrell Price, he hit Coach Revis's son, Adam Revis, for a touchdown, so that's how they got up. Missed the PAT, so it was 6-0. And then Reynolds finally gets a drive together. They had one catch that it looked out. He may have had half a centimeter of his toe inbounds. So it was a pretty controversial call. Okay. They called it a catch, and they go down, and Antonio Williams, he had a fantastic game for Reynolds. Really, really great little running back, and they put him in the flat. They put him in the slant, whatever you call it. And he's just an athletic guy. He scored the tying touchdown for Reynolds. So that's what happened. They scored. They get their PAT blocked at 6-6, and we go into overtime. Unfortunately, the final drive for Reynolds, though, they did get the ball back with like 30 seconds, or no, maybe a minute to go. And Antonio Williams, he got hurt, so they didn't have him in overtime. And the guy who was just dominant all night for Northwest was Easton Dean, the running back. He's a junior. Rich, who does our stats for us here at HighSchoolOT with me at my games, he had him for over 100 yards rushing. So fantastic game by him, capped off by a game-winning rushing touchdown. And Northwest Guilford was able to fend them off in overtime with the DBs. It was a fantastic time seeing how excited Northwest Guilford was. You'll be able to see Rich's interview with Coach Rusevich, and he was just excited. And he's saying how crazy high school football is now. He's 3-7, and they got a chance to go, play in the playoffs in 8A.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. So were they kind of aware that this might be a playing-in situation? Were they reading HighSchoolOT this week? And what was kind of like what they say about the playoff situation after?
Yeah, that seemed to be you had them ready to go on the sideline. They knew exactly the possibility of playing in the playoffs. They knew, the implications. Coach Revis, I talked to him on the sideline. He was out there. And, yes, they all are listening and watching what HighSchoolOT was saying about the playoffs and the brackets. And they're hoping, everything that you had written about them, they're hoping that there's a slim chance that they get in, and they know they're going to have to probably go down to Charlotte somewhere and face a pretty good team.
Evan and I were talking about the new RPI formulas this year. The schedule that Northwest Guilford played this season, they played this ridiculous schedule. I'm going to go through it real fast here for everyone. So Northwest Guilford played Western Alamance, which had a good year. They won that game in week 1. Then they played Page. Then they played Northern Guilford. Then Richmond. Then Mount Tabor. So they had this crazy schedule. And Evan and I were talking about this earlier, where these, when these teams went out to schedule these incredibly tough non-conference slates, it was really helping them out under that old RPI formula, because we had the highest percentage, and that formula was going towards your opponent win percentage. But this year, since that's changed, your own win percentage is as important as the opponent's win percentage this year. So we think that a lot of these schools were scheduling, these crazy non-conference schedules, expecting to be boosted. But with the change this year, I think it kind of impacted Northwest Guilford a bit. At the same time, I wonder if you can say, Logan, the fact they played all these games, do you think that kind of prepared them for the situation tonight when they really just kind of needed a win to get in?
Yeah, I think that's what Coach was talking about with Rich in his postgame interview. They've been battling adversity internally, externally, with just, of course, you're frustrated. He scheduled a lot of tough teams. And like you said, back in the old days now, that would have definitely helped. And I think they finally just pushed through at the end what Coach was discussing with Rich, and seeing his team finally just come together there at the end and hold, Reynolds from scoring, and the offense looked great. It was the first play. The offensive line blocked, and it was perfect. I mean, Dean, there was a wide open hole. They did a great job tonight. And Dean kind of talked about the offensive line, how hard everybody's been working. Everybody, they seemed like they had been through war, which is what their schedule was for sure. Every team was really dominant that they played. Yeah. And so I think it was a sigh of relief tonight but I think they knew they could win that game tonight because they were battle tested, like you said. They knew that they could come in there and win that game to give themselves a chance.
So on the other side, I'm not too worried about RJ Reynolds. They're still going to be a decently high seed in 7A. But something did happen in your county, Logan, tonight. That's going to affect these 7A playoffs. So Reagan comes up with a big multi-score win over East Forsyth after Reagan got shut out by West Forsyth last week, 35-0, and after East Forsyth took West Forsyth to overtime early in the season. So not gonna lie, I was expecting a nice win for East Forsyth tonight, but Reagan keeps doing what we don't expect them to do, I guess. What is your impression of that game? What did you hear about that game?
Yeah, so I was kind of trying to go back and watch the little highlights that they had posted from the CW that do the local games here in the Triad. And so last week, John Evans was just completely shut down, and you and I were in shock. Again, I think it's the Halloween stuff that's going on. It sounds like there's been some upsets around the state. It looks like he scored 3 touchdowns tonight, 1 for 75 yards. So he's back to where he was the whole season, except for last week's game against West Forsyth. So it's good to see that they got him going again and stuck with the run game. And it looks like they had like a defensive touchdown fumble recovery as well to get to that 28-14 score versus East. But I'm just as shocked as you. I was like, wow, maybe East, East played West toe to toe. They probably have a good chance of beating Reagan, and that just didn't happen tonight. John Evans showed up, the one that has been dominating every game this season except for last week.
Wow. So Logan, I appreciate the time tonight. We're going to have to digest that Reagan score. We're going to have to digest the Northwest Guilford game. Thanks for you and Rich for going out there tonight. We're going to see Rich's recap later and the interviews later. Logan, get some rest. We're going to have a busy week next week with playoffs starting. I can't wait to find out where you're going to be going and you and Rich are going to be going. Logan, appreciate it. And next up, so someone that is probably very interested in the results of that Reagan East Forsyth game is Zach Mayo in the 7A West. So Coach Mayo, obviously you beat Lake Norman tonight, your rival, 23-21. Congrats on the win, by the way. Obviously with 7A West getting kind of crazy tonight, we don't really know what's going to happen with their seed. I think there's a chance they'll go up to number 3. We'll have to see how it goes. But first, just kind of take us through the game tonight. I know that Lake Norman was winning kind of late in that game. You guys come back and win. Tell us about how it happened.
Yeah, my audio working now?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate you having me on. We found a way when we needed to. And that kind of sums up the night. It definitely was not our best game. Big shout out to Coach Oliphant and his staff. They had a really good game plan coming into it. But we, like I said, we found a way when we needed to. Went on a 2-minute drive with no timeouts left, and found a way to get it done.
I think with these rivalry games where the teams are so kind of even, you can probably come in with a certain game plan, right? But then rivalry stuff starts happening, right? And you just gotta probably throw it out. So did you have a certain plan coming in that just like you had to throw out tonight or had to adjust with?
It wasn't necessarily that. I think we had a lot of self-inflicted wounds. Turned the football over too many times on offense. And then as a team, just had way too many dumb penalties. And those are things that we've got to clean up if we want to make a run in the playoffs.
Who is the guy that I know coaches don't like singling out players often, but is there someone on the team that's kind of really improved the most from the beginning of the year to now that's really helping you out? Someone that's kind of taken some big strides throughout the course of the season?
I don't know if there's one person in particular. I think as a defense, they've kind of started to figure out the defense a little bit better. It's a new system for us. So definitely on that side of the ball, the defense has kind of grown and started to gel a little bit better. And then offensively, every single week, it seems like it's somebody else. We have guys step up all the time. And Brody does a really good job distributing the ball to everybody, and it's nothing for Jadarius to go have a big game, nothing for Gavin Barber to go have a big game. Tonight it was just Don Moore, and I was excited to see him have that game.
So while we don't quite know what the seed's going to be, we'll probably have a good idea tonight if people can put their scores in the max reps. Is your score in the max reps, Coach?
Yeah.
Yeah, get in there. Everyone get your scores in the max reps. So while we don't know, what the seed is going to be just quite yet, you are going to have a bye. That's pretty safe to say. How do you want to approach a bye week? Because we haven't had bye weeks in a while. How do you want to approach it, knowing that it's kind of an opportunity to kind of, do some recovery and also maybe some work on some things that, are hard to work on, on a normal week. Just how do you want to approach it?
Yeah, I think the one I say good thing. I guess we were kind of in this situation last year with the hurricane that rolled through, and then kind of getting it wasn't a
Good
first
point.
round
Yep.
bye, but we had that bye week essentially built into it.
Yep. Good call.
So going to go back and look at my notes from that and just kind of figure out some of the things that we did, what went well from that, and what I didn't like. But I think the big thing for us is, and it's the same thing we talked about going into this game. We've got to continue to just focus on us. We have to get better. Like I said, we had too many dumb penalties tonight. Those things are going to come back and get us at a certain point if we don't clean that stuff up. I don't think our group has played as a whole team up to their potential yet. And we've just got to continue to take strides closer to that. Make sure we're still competing in practice, but making sure as a team we're just getting better.
Good. Well, Coach, congrats again on the win. Always a big win to beat your rival, especially a rival like Lake Norman. That's a very good team. Like you mentioned, Coach Hall and them, they do a good job over there. Coach, congrats again, and thanks for joining us on the High School T Postgame show.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
All right, we are going to bring Evan back in.
There we go.
Hey, Evan. How you doing, Evan?
Doing well. Wrapping up here on the post-game show. Wrapping up volleyball stuff here. This is first experience with this new 8 classifications, multiple state championships on a weekend, last week of football, Halloween. What an experience.
Yeah.
What a lot of moving parts that we have going on right here. And
I'll tell you, people were quite upset about the original plan to release the brackets on Monday, and it led to it being changed to Sunday. And still, even after the change to Sunday, people are complaining about why it's going to be on Sunday. And you have to understand that, everyone voted for them to double the championships, right? But they didn't suddenly have a bunch of money, the association, to start paying double the staff, right? So, they had the same number of staff members that they had last year, and every year you've known them. And, we're kind of expected to all, double the championships. It's hard to do. It's really hard to do. And every single one of those people, they have a job, on Saturday. There's lots of championships going on. And also, the way they do the seeding, it's a group effort. It's not one person that does it. They want to be extra diligent. They want to have people double checking everything. So that's why the brackets can't come out tomorrow. And, we feel that too. We have all this stuff doubled this year. And, we have like the same staff. So we're feeling how they feel. But we're getting through it. It's been really fun. It's been really fun. We do have Cookie on the line here, Evan. We'll bring him in.
Yeah.
All right. James Moore from the Fayetteville Observer. Big games tonight. So Cape Fear continued its kind of like a late season run here. They beat Scotland 12-7. Is that the right score?
Yes.
Okay. I have a bunch of scores in my mind, so I'm trying to remember the right ones. Tell me about the game, and were you kind of surprised to see that being such a kind of defensive struggle?
Yes and no. I didn't think the score would be as low as it was, but I had it kind of in the 30s. And after the second half, I actually thought someone would get in the 20s. I'm sorry, after the first half, I thought someone would get in the 20s. But defensively, I think both teams were almost flawless. I think Cape Fear just really got the best of Scotland in that second half. They forced 3 turnovers, including one at the very end of the game with 8 seconds left, forced to safety, and that was all she wrote after that. Cape Fear really just methodically took their time on offense, even though I believe the entire game they may have had 5 possessions on offense. So defensively, they really got it done, and hats off to Coach Thomas, because he really coached a very methodical game for Cape Fear.
Who are some players on these teams that have kind of stood out to you over the course of the season? Maybe some guys that kind of merged to you on either Cape Fear or Scotland this year, over the course of the season.
For Cape Fear, I really like Aiden Leonard, linebacker, senior linebacker. I think I don't think he's getting the college attention that he should be getting, but he does have some interest. I know A&T is hitting his line as of late. little bit of Elon, ODU. I really like DeCorey Davis. He stepped up big time, and he actually made that last play for the safety. Bryson Powell, Scotland's quarterback, he bobbled the ball. DeCorey Davis got in the backfield, made a game saving sack. So I think guys like that. Of course, Ty Phillips, 3-star recruit, has some really big schools hitting him up over the past year or so. But these guys really are the heart of the team. But tonight, a guy that really impressed me is the sophomore quarterback, Trace Daughtery. I'm sorry. He was sophomore, JV quarterback. He stepped in for Geronimo Sanchez, who was ejected last week, so he was serving his 1-game suspension tonight. And I mean, he came in and he truly managed the game the right way. He made, like Coach Thomas said, he made some really good plays when it was needed. And then he also came in and just really took care of the football. And I think that was, in a game like this, that was most important in the playoff-like atmosphere. 2 defenses who were top tier, and also 2 offenses who could really put points on the board. Cape Fear scored 50 points in their last 2 games. Over the last 6 games, I believe, 6 or 7 games, no pun intended. Over those last few games, they've averaged 42.5 points a game. So, coming into the night only scoring 12 points, that's, I mean, kudos to Scotland. I mean, they kept them off the board, but they also failed to answer and score on their own.
So, how have your expectations for Cape Fear and what they can do in the playoffs kind of evolved this year? Because we were expecting them to have a bye week coming into this week. I wasn't sure if they'd be able to keep it if they lost to Scotland, but now they've won. They're certainly going to have a bye week. Obviously, the 7A is probably the strongest classification. Just what are your expectations now? You've seen them go on this late season run. Do you think this can be a team that gets to the 3rd, 4th round?
I do. And I believe the only way they can do it is if they limit mistakes like they did tonight. I really think that's the biggest thing for them, because they have the pieces. They have the receivers. They have the quarterback. They have the running back. They have the they have the defenders. I really think it's just limiting mistakes and taking advantage of other teams' mistakes. And of course, as we all know, coming down in the playoffs, that's going to matter the most. You can make the big plays, but if you come back and make a big play and then the next play you make a mistake or you give up a 15-yard gain, that could be the turning point of the game. So over the season, at the beginning of the year, I predicted Cape Fear to win the conference. But after the first 2 or 3 weeks, I was a little nervous. They lost the 71st, which was a game that they ended up going down as a win. But and they lost to Jack Britt. After that Jack Britt game, that's when I became nervous for them, because I didn't think they had it, that dog that they've had over the last couple of years that I've seen, to really get over that hump and really be a great conference champions, obviously. First conference championship in 9 years. So over the course of the season, and like Coach Thomas said, having Ty Phillips come back from his injury after week 5 or 6, I believe, having him coming back gave the rest of the team confidence, and they honestly have a new walk just coming onto the field. You can see the confidence oozing from them as they take the field with Ty Phillips back on the lineup.
First conference championship in 9 years sounds wild for Cape Fear. It was such a regular good program out of the Sandhills that it's wild to hear that. It's been 9 years since they won a conference championship outright. But it's interesting, we were talking about this earlier, the teams where you pick them in the preseason and then you're kind of like worried if first couple of weeks, but then you end up being right in the end. It's kind of a weird feeling when you're both right and also a little bit wrong, but still right in the end. It's kind of a funny feeling. James, before you go, any other scores jump out to you tonight? And then also, what can we expect from your coverage in the Fayetteville Observer this week?
2 scores really stuck out to me that I was wrong on my weekly predictions. Westover beat E. Smith 49-0. I really like the quarterback and running back they have over at Westover, but 49-0 is not what I thought. I thought E. Smith kind of had the momentum, coming from, a dramatic month. it's been hard for them. But I really thought they would come in and really make a statement. But I would eat my words on that one. And Pound Force took down Overhills 35-0. So those two games really popped out to me, especially for two teams who are fighting for a playoff spot. So we'll see how that lands on Sunday. And next week we're preparing for soccer and football playoffs. I think Cape Fear Soccer is really they're really good. I'm impressed. So we'll see how that goes.
All right. Well, James, really appreciate it. James F. Moore Jr. from the Available Observer does a great job covering prep sports in the Sandhills. James, appreciate it. We're going to hear from you next week. I guess, after the first round of the playoffs, we'll have to see where you're going to be and all that after the fact. But James, appreciate the time. And that's actually going to do it for this Talk It Out NC postgame show, final of the regular season. We'll be back in the playoffs with all the updates from what's probably going to be a very wild first round of the playoffs. It's going to be a lot of close games this year because we don't have the top teams that they're going to be on the buys. So it's going to be interesting first round of playoffs. Please stay tuned to High School OT playoff projections coming out tonight. We'll update them throughout Saturday as the RPIs change. We know that there's going to be some stragglers putting their scores in late. We know there's going to be some weird changes that always happens. Just stay tuned to High School OT. Playoff projections are going to be updated all throughout Saturday. And of course, Sunday morning, we're going to have a pretty accurate idea of what it's going to be like that afternoon when the official brackets come out. So stay tuned to High School OT. And with that, we're going to end it here. Thanks again to Talk It Out NC for sponsoring us, and enjoy the week.
Don't fall for the myths. Get the facts about underage drinking.
Myth: teens bounce back fast and teenage athletes can perform just fine after a night of drinking alcohol. The fact is, alcohol can hinder athletic performance for up to 3 days, delaying recovery and causing long-term issues with muscle loss and weakness. But don't just take it from me.
Choosing not to drink as an underage athlete has really helped me significantly. I've been able to focus, keep my priorities straight, and it's helped me separate myself from, many other people.
Get more facts at talkitoutnc.org.